Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating question. What is Citta? And more importantly, how can discovering the mind through observing our bodily feelings actually unlock a profound sense of inner quiet? We spend so much of our lives trapped right up here in our own heads, just caught in these endless loops of stress, anxiety, and overthinking. But what if the key to stopping all that chaotic mental chatter wasn't actually found in the brain at all? What if, to truly quiet the mind, we had to figure out where our thoughts and emotions literally begin? So today we're unpacking a concept from the original teaching of the Lord Buddha that totally shifts our entire understanding of self-awareness.
I want you to think about something for just a second. Picture a moment of sudden, primal fear. Like, imagine you're walking in the dark and suddenly you see a snake, or maybe a car swerves into your lane out of nowhere. You don't feel that initial terrifying shock up in your head, do you? You don't logic your way into being scared. No, you feel this massive jolt, this sudden drop right in the center of your chest. And honestly, that physical sensation is our very first major clue on this journey. So here's how we're going to structure our journey today to understand the hidden mechanics of our own mind. We'll be going over beyond the thinking brain, understanding true Citta, locating Citta in the chest, how to observe Citta, the advantages in daily life, and finally, polishing the mind.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Beyond the Thinking Brain, the Source of Thoughts. We often just assume, mostly because of modern science and biology, that absolutely all our thoughts, feelings, and emotions originate directly inside the physical brain. It kind of seems like common sense, right? But making a clear distinction here is absolutely crucial. Now, yes, the brain is an incredibly powerful organ. It's fantastic at processing information, analyzing data, and spinning up these complex narratives and stories. But the original teaching of the Lord Buddha points out something fascinating. The brain isn't the true birthplace of our deepest, raw emotional reactions. When that shock hits you or a sudden wave of anger rises up, the origin point, the actual source, is completely separate from your brain's processing center. The brain really just receives the signal and turns it into a long, exhausting story.
Moving right along to Section 2, Understanding True Citta, the Abstract Mind.
So, to find this true birthplace, we need to completely shift our paradigm and look to the concept of Citta. Citta is an absolutely essential concept. Basically, you can think of it as the true source of your awareness. And it's entirely formless and abstract. It has no physical mouth to speak, no physical ears to hear, and yet it's the central hub of all your awareness. When you hear an internal voice, or when you feel a sudden surge of joy or despair, that is Citta reacting. It's the entity that receives every single phenomenon you experience. Every sight, sound, and feeling ultimately reports right back to this formless center.
According to the original teaching of a Lord Buddha, specifically derived from texts like the Vitakkasanthana Sutta, dealing with relentless overthinking requires a very specific strategy. Listen, if you just try to argue with the thoughts in your head, you're going to be fighting forever. It's a losing battle. Instead, we have to look to the foundation. You literally have to sever the thought exactly at its root, right before it blooms into that massive branching tree of anxiety up in your brain.
Which brings us to Section 3, Locating Citta in the Chest, also known as the Hridayavathu.
Okay, so if the root of our thoughts and emotions isn't up there in the skull, where exactly do we find it? Where do we actually aim our focus? Well, you can locate this anchor point, known in Pali as the Hridayavathu, right in the center of your physical chest. This is the heart base. It is precisely where that sudden jolt of shock, fear, or even intense joy physically drops. The formless Citta relies on this physical location as its temporary home, or base inside the body. So by bringing our attention away from all that chatter in the head and dropping it down into the center of the chest, we're essentially staking out the actual birthplace of the mind. I really want you to remember this phrase. It happens before the brain even knows. The very moment an external event occurs, let's say someone insults you, a ripple of reaction happens down here at the Hridayavathu first. It vibrates right in the chest long before the brain has the chance to formulate it into a complex story about, how dare they say that to me? If we catch the reaction here at the chest, we are catching it at the speed of the source, rather than the delayed, messy speed of the brain.
Let's look at Section 4, How to Observe Citta, Watching the Ripple.
All right, now that we know what Citta is and where it anchors, how do we practically observe it as we go about our super busy lives? The beauty of this practice is its total simplicity. You absolutely don't need to go retreat to a cave. You can do this at the grocery store or sitting in a stressful meeting. Step 1, just notice when a sudden emotion or thought loop hits you. Step 2, immediately drop your attention right out of your head and anchor it down at the center of your chest. And step 3, this is the most important part, guys, just observe. Seriously, do not judge it. Don't try to control it or push it away. Just hold your awareness at the chest and watch the feeling as if you're watching a ripple in a pond.
Because when you just observe, you literally watch the birth and death of the feeling. Again, you are not trying to force the emotion away. If you try to force it, you're just creating friction and a whole lot more suffering. Instead, by simply maintaining your anchor right there at the chest, the emotion arises, it peaks, and then it naturally dissolves entirely on its own. It just fades away before it even has the chance to travel up and cloud your thinking brain.
And that leads right into Section 5, Advantages in Daily Life, Finding Viveka. So why should we actually make this a habit? Well, there are profound, highly tangible advantages to walking around with this kind of internal awareness anchored in the chest. By observing Citta at the chest, your physical brain's workload drops drastically. We're talking operating at maybe just 10 or 20% of its usual chaotic capacity. Because you're intercepting those emotional reactions way before they become complex mental stories, your brain isn't forced to constantly overwork, panic, and analyze everything. It actually becomes incredibly light and super efficient. And let me tell you, this translates directly into a massive reduction in our daily struggles. Even when you get hit with intensely negative emotions or incredibly difficult life situations, the simple, consistent act of observing the chest can reduce the intensity of your mental suffering by more than half. Now, you might still feel that initial sting, that remaining 40% or so, but the massive compounding suffering that comes from spinning out endless stories in your head, that's completely cut off at the source.
Let's look at how this impacts your whole system. Not only does it significantly reduce stress and overthinking, but it actually has physical benefits too. According to the source material, intercepting stress at the chest actually relieves chronic head heaviness, tension, and even migraines for some practitioners. Why? Because the brain isn't bearing the brunt of the emotional load anymore. It also cultivates this deep, unbroken focus for learning and working. But honestly, most beautifully, it fosters a state known in Pali as Viveka. That's a profound sense of inner quiet and seclusion. Basically, you carry your own peaceful sanctuary with you, right inside your chest, no matter how loud or crazy the world gets.
Finally, let's head into Section 6, Polishing the Mind, the sandpaper analogy.
Now, having this inner sanctuary doesn't mean the world suddenly stops being difficult. The world is absolutely still going to throw chaos, insults, and conflict your way, but this method completely changes how you receive it. Normally, when we're reacting from the brain, external friction, like say someone being super rude to us, feels like a direct threat. We want to fight back, which leads to immediate anger. But when you're observing Citta at the chest, you shift to polishing. You actually start to view these insults, disagreements, and painful moments not as threats, but as rough sandpaper. And think about what sandpaper does. It smooths out the rough edges. It actively cleanses and polishes the mind, making it brighter and way more resilient.
This practice of accepting the sandpaper is known as khanti. In Pali, khanti means deep patience, endurance, and forbearance. When you feel that painful ripple in your chest, and instead of exploding or lashing out, you just watch it with khanti, you are actively burning away the mind's impurities. You're literally using the world's negativity to cleanse yourself, rather than letting it create new conflicts and new suffering in your life. It turns literally every challenge into this incredible opportunity for profound personal growth.
Ultimately, the teachings on Citta offer us a really profound choice every single day. The next time the world tests you, the next time you feel that sudden surge of anger, fear, or anxiety, are you going to let it fly up and get lost in the chaotic narratives of your head? Or will you remember to drop your attention down into the center of your chest, find that inner quiet, and just watch the ripple until it completely fades away? The power to quiet your mind is literally inside you, just waiting to be observed. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this brings a whole new level of peace and focus to your daily life.